But he's not addressing that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this on record. I don't think he knows much about Islam, and I don't think he's done his research even before writing this book.
Okay,
and I have evidence.
Show me evidence.
So, for example, I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save the evidence.
Why? I'm excited. No,
because it links in with another important point. Rhetorically,
I think
you're more powerful. I think
you should do it in this early stage of the podcast.
Let's see if we can find it. Page 76.
76.
Let's go to page 76. So look, page 76 basically. Now, let me build the case like this.
You seem excited.
Well, I'm excited because, people like this expose themselves.
Okay.
And this needs to be known. Now, page 76, there are some things that even non-Muslims know about Muslims. There are a few basic things that even the average non-Muslim knows about Muslims.
Yes.
A few of them are Friday prayer, right? Ramadan, you fast as Muslims. Eid, right, which is one of the celebrations of the Muslims, right? We have 2 Eids every year.
Yeah, sure.
Right? Now, these are basic things even non-Muslims know. Now, you'd expect someone that's writing to address the Muslim world, right, and wanting to engage with them and prove to them that their beliefs in God are irrational and silly and all of this type of stuff, that he would do his research on Islam.
That you'd represent Muslims properly.
Absolutely. But the guy doesn't even... Professor Dawkins doesn't even seem to know the sort of some basic things about the Muslim tradition, such as the Eid. For example, when he's in chapter, the good book, I think it's chapter 3, page 76, or chapter 2, 3, I don't, one of the two. What he does is he's attacking some of the narratives of the Bible and by extension the Quran, because he says some of the narratives appear in the Quran and the Bible and are similar, right? Yep. Now he attacks the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, right?
Yep.
When he's told to sacrifice his son.
Okay.
Or he's shown that vision, right? Now he's mocking the story and he says, look, there's a narration by the Prophet that, even Satan appears to him and, he tells him not to do it and, that he throws a stone and he runs away, and he says that, oh, look, Satan seems to be the good guy, all of this type of stuff, right? And then he says, and this is sort of carried through into the Muslim celebration of Eid, the stoning.
Let me read that.
You can read it. It's just there. I've underlined it.
Okay, let's see this blunder. But Abraham, and this is from page 76, but Abraham, preferring his dream, drove him away by pelting him with stones. Muslims symbolically reenact this stoning in the annual festival called Eid.
Yeah.
That's a disaster.
Now, we know when Muslims actually, it's a rite of...
It's during Hajj.
It's Hajj, right?
Yeah. It's symbolically, yeah, we do it symbolically. But the thing is, okay, look, it's a mistake.
Yeah, of course.
One would argue the mistake doesn't undermine his main point. However, let me just make this clear.
Yeah.
His whole argument is to undermine religion.
Yes.
And his book doesn't reference.
Yeah.
So, by virtue of that, the reader has to rely on his authority.
Yeah.
So, we're not really deliberately just poking holes because everyone makes mistakes. But the thing is, since we have to rely on his authority because he's not referencing anything, then this questions his authority about religious and atheist discourse and because he's made such a fundamental error about something very basic in Islam, which is
and to be honest, this pattern repeats through the book.
Does it?
Now, there's another place, I don't remember the page number, there's another place where he's talking about being punished for sins, right? And he generalizes. He says that people will burn in hell forever because they've sinned. Full stop. That's not necessarily true. You're not giving the full picture.
Absolutely.
You're not highlighting the mercy of God and forgiveness and so on and so forth.
Do you think this is a trend amongst not just Richard Dawkins, but atheists? Not all atheists, of course, because people are not the same. We don't otherize. Everyone's different. But there is a lot of people online, offline, who may consider themselves atheists, that they have these kind of misrepresentations of religion. Yeah. Do you see that trend?
I think they just... I think what happens with most cases, right, is they learn a little bit about the religion from hearsay and people saying bits and pieces, like Chinese whispers, as he mentions in one of his chapters about myths. And based on that, because they already have a bias, that becomes a confirmation for their bias. And then they stop there and they never look any further. And they repeat that same old beaten narrative over and over again, as Dawkins seems to do throughout his books. right? And as most of these leading atheists seem to do, they just have these misunderstandings about Islam and they just repeat them over and over again. And it's a shame, really, because even a regular non-Muslim, a normal non-Muslim who's just done a little bit of research, honest, genuine, sincere research, will be able to pick these things apart.
Yeah.
Right? And it just again, if you're talking to one of your primary audiences is the Muslim world, at least do your research. If you're all about evidence,
I suggest you should write him a letter.
Yeah, we should. This is an open letter, and I will definitely put something.
I think you should say to him, "Look, you've made a little mistake. It's not like a massive, huge blunder, but it is problematic because it's an indication of how much you've studied into Islam, and yet you're commenting about Islam.
Your credibility is at stake
maybe
from this perspective as well.
Get him to correct it, and also say to him, why haven't you basically, especially in the first chapter, spoken about what religious people say about the justification of their beliefs?
Yeah.
And maybe if you want to target the Muslim world, then at least target the Islamic conception of the divine, which is intuitive and rational, and address it in that way.
And on the point